Thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. This very important occasion. I want to thank Congressman Brian Higgins, who's been a leader in waterfront development and the ongoing efforts to preserve the Great Lakes, as well as Buffalo Harbor Kayak founder and owner Jason Schwinger for joining us here today. It's imperative that all Western New Yorkers understand the inaction on climate change will have a dramatic negative impact on the Great Lakes ecosystem and on the economic well-being of our community. The repercussions of climate change are very real, and I believe the President is showing true leadership in addressing this issue head-on and calling on America to take a stand against excessive carbon emissions and pollution. This is not only about the environment, it's also about our economy, especially for Western New York, as we finally embrace our waterfront development destiny and see progress and new activities spring up on the shores of Lake Erie and on the Buffalo River every single day. We simply cannot sit idly by and let this threat to the Great Lakes and Western New York waterways go unchecked. Directing the EPA to set power plant carbon pollution standards is a very strong and much needed action President Obama can take to address the impacts of climate change. It's also important to note that President Obama's plan is expected to create jobs and reduce energy costs. The stricter emission standards could create over 200,000 jobs by 2020 and further reduce emissions all across the United States. We'll further discuss the profound impact that climate change can have on our Great Lakes, especially Lake Erie, in just a moment. I also want to again stress the economic urgency for our action. Our region has many small and medium-sized employers that rely on a healthy and thriving Lake Erie in order to stay in business and add to the quality of life and attractiveness of Buffalo Niagara. Restaurants, charter fishermen, recreational water sports, and the many other waterfront features our area offers are dependent on a vibrant and strong ecosystem. This is a brand new Buffalo waterfront, new attractions, new activity, new energy. It's being redeveloped at a rapid pace right before our very eyes. Our commitment to waterfront redevelopment must remain steadfast and unwavering. And part of that commitment has been an understanding of what may lie ahead for our unique water resources if nothing is done. Action is needed to ensure the work we're doing now to make Buffalo a world-class waterfront city, and is not diminished in the years ahead by the long-term impact of climate change on Lake Erie and our inland waterways. More is being done at the state level, and we're proud to support those efforts. However, at the same time, it's absolutely critical that the federal government step up and take action to reduce the harmful impacts all across the nation. Today, we hope to build awareness of the damaging effects of climate change on Buffalo and Western New York and increase public support for swift action to address the growing problem to our ecosystem. I'm happy to support President Obama's call for climate change action, and I encourage all of my fellow Western New Yorkers to join us in pledging that we will act for well-being and community for our planet, our ecosystem, our economy, and our environment. Now I'd like to call up to the podium, again, our great champion and someone that is not only a friend of ours, but someone that's been focused on, he brought with him his fan club from the water taxi here. Congressman Brian Higgins.
Thank you, Tim.
All right.
You notice how Tim said fan club, not plural, singular. Thank you very, very much for being here. And this is a very important moment in our region's history and our nation's history relative to the natural environment whose replenishment we've taken for granted. Lake levels are at their lowest rate, as they have been in the past 2 decades, and the economy of Buffalo and Western New York, relative to the generation of hydroelectricity, relative to the ability to realize the full potential of the Great Lakes for recreational purposes and for economic development purposes, are imperiled. So we have an obligation to underscore the importance of changing this negative trend of climate change. It's very, very important. A committee in Congress this past week made a decision to cut the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative that are designed to clean up old industrial waterways like the Buffalo Waterfront, the Buffalo River, the Niagara River, by 80%. By 80%. This at a time where we have just invested a public-private partnership, $44 million to remediate the Buffalo River from its industrial abuse over many, many decades. In 1968, the Environmental Protection Agency deemed the Buffalo River biologically dead. The next year, it caught on fire because of all the industrial pollution in the water column itself. EPA officials said last year that they believe that the Buffalo River will be swimmable within 5 years, and the fish that are caught there suitable for human consumption. We have come a long way. This is no time to be turning back. The Great Lakes region is made up of both Democrat and Republican members. We will stand with the president to ensure that money is restored, that's been cut, restored back to the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. And as I said, it's vitally important. Timmy Kennedy had mentioned, this place, Canal Side, is a public place that will feature over 800 events this year, attracting over 1 million people from all over Western New York and Southern Ontario. Directly across the street is the redevelopment of the Odd site that will feature an outdoor skating rink that'll be 3.5 times the size of Rockefeller Center in New York City, surrounded by 7 development parcels. Those 2 public finance infrastructure projects have been used to leverage a $30 million redevelopment of the Donovan State Office building, which will be open this fall, which will house Phillips Lytle Law Firm. $30 million in private sector investment. Directly across the street from that, the Buffalo Sabres have made a $175 million investment into the Harbor Center, which will be completed at this time next year. We're also looking at the redevelopment of Ohio Street, which will be the land bridge between the Inner Harbor, Canal Side, and the Outer Harbor waterfront. So the waterfront is fundamentally important to Buffalo's economy. It has been historically, it is now, and it will be even more so prospectively into the future. The next 24 months of waterfront development projects will change Buffalo for the next 100 years and for the better. So thank you very, very much for being here. We're pleased to be here with all of our colleagues in both the private and the public sector who enjoy not only the great life quality benefits of a healthy Great Lakes basin, but also the economic benefits as well.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Congressman. Next, I'd like to invite up Jason Schwinger to say a few words.
Thank you. I guess very quickly, I would like to say that having been a recipient of this canal side development and having been down here for the last 5 years since it really opened, it's really opened my eyes to the climate and the economy and how it's all related in downtown Buffalo. 5 years ago, it was unusual for people to realize that Buffalo is a city on the water. In that time, as Congressman Higgins mentioned, there's going to be 1 million people coming down this year to explore and participate in events down here. And having set up shop on the river 5 years ago, I can say firsthand that the river has changed. It is significantly in better shape today than it was just 5 years ago. But at the same time, the lake has also changed. Just over the last 5 years, the level of the lake has gone down and the algae is almost out of control. And that's something that I've been able to measure in 5 years. So this is a real campaign, and there's something to be learned from this. And I just want to thank you guys for having me down.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. I'd like to give a brief overview of what our lakes and waterways are facing as a result of climate change. Studies have shown that warming waters and early season rains associated with climate change have led to record-setting toxic algae blooms across much of Lake Erie. Much algae is being bloomed across the entire lake that has not been there before. There is actually 1/3 of the entire lake bottom that is being consumed by these algae blooms. There is nationwide attention that is being brought to this. A New York Times article recently brought to the attention that our Great Lakes are being consumed by these toxic levels of algae. It's just constantly being recognized across the nation that something needs to be done to our sacred lakes, and it needs to be done immediately before it's too late. The distressing news has, besides catching nationwide headlines, it's very much in our minds on a local level. The Lake Erie Western Basin has seen a 50% reduction in charter angling operations as a result of algae bloom activity and growth, and its impact on the oxygen levels, which has resulted in decreased fish counts. This has an incredibly negative impact on our economy. The lake levels are now at historic lows. The lake levels are actually at 26 inches lower than their historic averages. Now, this may seem like a small amount, but when you take into consideration the vastness of the Great Lakes, the impact it's having on the Great Lakes, and ultimately the reciprocal impact it's having on our economy, is unconscionable, and it needs to change, and that's why we're stepping forward today. So with all of that said, I again want to thank everyone for being out here today and making sure that we're getting the word out that we're supportive of the President's initiative, along with Congressman Higgins and the federal government. I want to stress again the importance and the urgency of this initiative and getting the word out. Our region has seen many small and medium-sized employers that rely on healthy and thriving Lake Erie in order to stay in business and add to the quality of life and the attractiveness of Buffalo Niagara. Restaurants, charter fishermen, recreational water sports, and the waterfront features that our area offers are negatively impacted by the detrimental impact that the economy is seeing because of the increase in algae bloom and the detriment that it's having on our environment and the Great Lakes significantly. So again, thanks everybody for being here today. I'm also going to open this back up to those at the podium if anybody has anything else to add.
Just make, go ahead.
What do you say to the non-believers? I mean, clearly there are people out there who just believe that, it's all a myth and it's all,
Well, there's always going to be non-believers, but there's empirical evidence. Tim just made reference to the lake levels being considerably less than they have been historically. That adversely impacts the ability of the Niagara Power Project, which is right in our community, to generate clean, cheap electricity, which has an economic benefit to this community. Jason talked about the negative impact that low water levels have on the recreational use of our waterways. Tim made reference to the algae blooms. What happens is when there's a proliferation of algae, when that algae dies, it falls to the bottom and sucks out all the oxygen. And much like human life, aquatic life requires oxygen. And when that's not there, you create dead zones in the Great Lakes. That has a negative impact in terms of fishing, in terms of recreation, and in terms of the economy. The Brookings Institute said that the impact of the Great Lakes to our community alone is over $1 billion. So as that natural resource is compromised, so is our life quality and so is our economy. It's very, very simple. So I would just say that look at the empirical evidence, and as I said, lake levels are just one aspect, but it affects adversely every aspect of our lives.
so where does the funding for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative stand on
Right now, a congressional subcommittee has proposed an 80% reduction from last year to this year. I plan to fight this along with other members of Congress, both sides, Democrat and Republican, to restore that funding based on the economic, life quality, and environmental benefits of restoring that funding. As I said, the combination of public money, $22 million in federal money, and then $22 million in private money and foundation money is paying for the remediation of the Buffalo River, which was abused for decades by direct industrial toxic discharges into that waterway. We have made major progress. This is not the time to turn back. The time is to move forward. And here's the thing that everybody in Buffalo and Western New York and everybody throughout the Great Lakes Basin needs to know. The attraction to the waterfront is not Bass Pro, it's not E-Zone or some other silver bullet project. The attraction to the waterfront is the water. That's why people come down here. Hundreds of thousands of people each and every year to enjoy both the inner harbor and the outer harbor. That's our future, and that's the future that we have an obligation to future generations to provide the limitless opportunity that comes with living along the Great Lakes Basin.
Any other questions? Any good? Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
Good job.
Good job. Thanks.